welcome to episode 14 of the Indie Author Mindset podcast with me, Adam Croft. I hope you're all well. It's a bit of an odd episode today, actually. We writers, we tend to live in a bit of a bubble at times, sitting at home writing on our own, and I guess this podcast probably reflects that in many ways. But today's episode is very much of its time and very much rooted in the real world. First of all, let's deal with the elephant in the room. Everyone is very worried about the coronavirus pandemic and how it will affect their lives. It's fair to say it's going to affect the lives of every person in the world in one way or another, even if it's not something you're concerned with and your main worry is that you can't get any toilet roll. But I've seen a lot of people musing that this isn't a problem for authors because millions of people will be stuck at home and will need something to occupy them. Books, perhaps. I hope that's true, but at the moment I am seeing some mixed signs. That's not necessarily what I'm seeing at the moment, and that's perfectly normal. Let me talk you through why. I posted in the Indie Author Mindset Facebook group earlier this week, asking you for your experiences when it comes to paid advertising and online sales over the past week or two. And it would be fair to say the response was mixed. Some people, some authors, are seeing things holding steady or even slightly increasing actually. But there is a small majority of cases in which conversions and sales are down. My theory behind this is it is clearly a time of great uncertainty. Nobody really knows what's going to happen, although we know it's not going to be good. Many people are worried about their jobs and their income, and they are, quite rightly, tightening their belts. It's fair to say these are unprecedented times. The world hasn't seen anything quite like this before, and it's only going to get a lot worse. That's just the simple maths of exponential increases. Luxuries and impulse purchases are the first things to go. And lots of people, let's face it, can't even get hold of basic medicines and sanitary products at the moment, so books aren't going to be the first thing on their minds. But a time will come where they will need books. Things at the moment are very up and down. They're changing by the hour, never mind anything else. And any major shifts in government policy, for example, closing workplaces and schools, will have an effect. And as I record this on Tuesday the 17th of March, currently workplaces and schools are open here in the UK. I believe they are also in the US, but by the time you hear this, that may well have changed. Things are changing literally by the hour at the moment. And school closures might actually mean that there is less time for adults to relax and read, and those of us who are parents will know that to be true. But lots of readers are older people. They are in the highest risk group, so they're likely to be worried and to have other things on their mind. And yes, they will need escapism, but staying alive is going to be their main priority, quite understandably. But this is a situation that is ever-changing. I'm going to keep my finger on the pulse with this, and I am asking you, please do keep sending me your experiences and how you see this affecting your sales, not as a prediction moving forward necessarily, but how you are seeing things playing out at the moment, day to day. Are your ads getting more expensive or cheaper? Personally, I've seen the costs initially rise. I think probably because the companies were seeing a reduction in footfall. Big companies seeing a reduction in footfall through their shops and their stores, so they're trying to replace that with online sales, quite understandably. And when you've got big companies throwing lots of money at Facebook ads, us little authors who need to keep our cost per click down are going to struggle as a result of that. And then at the weekend, I noticed that CPCs started to dip again, which is a good sign. And I wonder whether That's because of the agencies who run these PPC programs, these Facebook ads for big companies, are not there for the weekend. That's what we used to see going back a year or two. We used to see that costs per click were reduced at the weekend because big companies' ads were scaled down. But as I report this on Tuesday, yesterday, the Monday, cost per click were also slightly down as well, which is a good thing. So I wonder now if companies are starting to see that we're in this for the long run and they're not looking to overexpose themselves in advertising. As I say, this changes from day to day and hour to hour, so I wouldn't be surprised if I come back on here next week and tell you something completely different. But I'm keeping my finger on the pulse, so please do get in contact with me and let me know what you're seeing from day to day. I do want to hear from you. Let's get a bit of a hive mind going on this and try to work out how we can move forward and make the most of this for ourselves and for our readers, because there are more important things than books and writing. We'll carry on for those who need our escapism, but please do make sure you put your health first and stay safe. You can get in contact with me via the Indie Author Mindset Facebook group or email podcast@indieauthormindset.com. So on to something I was going to say a little less serious. Let's talk about VAT and tax. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, who is the chap in charge of all the money here in the UK, he announced in his budget last week that VAT on ebooks will be scrapped. For those of you outside of the UK, you may know VAT as sales tax or GST if you're in Europe. The rate is currently 20% in the UK on ebooks, which is one of the highest in the world. We have no VAT, no sales tax on print books. But as of the 1st of December this year, VAT on ebooks is being scrapped. That doesn't cover audiobooks. They will still attract VAT at 20%. I posted a video in the Indie Author Mindset Facebook group last week explaining this in more detail and how it will affect you. So please do go and check that out, because it does have a lot more detail in that. But essentially, I advise changing nothing. You don't need to tweak your price, because VAT comes off after the price that you've set. It's not added on at the checkout as it is in US retail and some other countries. All prices in the UK already are inclusive of taxes, so the UK price that you set needs to remain the same. From the 1st of December, what will happen is the VAT will stop being taken from your UK sales, and you will keep that without needing to do anything, so your royalties will increase. So should you drop your prices to account for that? Can you now afford to drop your prices? I would say, ethically speaking, probably not as well in terms of the future of the industry. We don't really want this race to the bottom when it comes to pricing, and we do want readers who are willing to pay for our books if we want to have a job in a few years' time. And I would say in any case, mathematically speaking, for most people, no, you shouldn't drop your prices. You want your prices to end in 0.99 in most countries, because psychologically that is going to increase your conversion rate. And for most people, if you drop your prices to the next pound down, so if you go down from $2.99 to $1.99, then you're probably going to be taking a cut of more than 20%. Certainly from $2.99 to $1.99 you will, which will leave you worse off after the new VAT rate comes in if you slash your prices. If your books are priced at £4.99, then dropping them to £3.99 is a drop of slightly over 20%. So you'll be ever so slightly worse off if you go down from £4.99 to £3.99. But that is pretty much the cut-off point. So from the 1st of December, if you're charging £5.99 or above for ebooks in the UK at the moment, £5.99 or more, then you can afford to drop your prices by a pound after the 1st of December. But you certainly don't need to. Of course, going back to the topic we opened up on, the global pandemic and the worldwide economic meltdown that we're seeing may well change that advice. And let's face it, it might even force the Chancellor's hand to delay or cancel completely the VAT cut. We don't know yet. But as of now, as of the hour I'm recording this, that is my advice. Now, last week, on the Indie Author Mindset podcast. No, sorry, the week before, I think it was. Yes, it was. We had the guest special last week with Sasha Black. The week before, I launched the Indie Author Mindset Patreon program. Thank you very much to everybody who's joined as a patron so far. It's been very encouraging, and I did actually get warned a couple of weeks ago by one or two listeners who have their own Patreon programs that me promising to name everyone on the next show might have been a bit daft, as people with existing audiences like I have who launch a Patreon program tend to get a big wave of new subscribers at the start, which then turns into a trickle over time. Turns out they were right. So I'm going to name 10 at a time, starting this week. Apologies if your name isn't read out this week. You're in the hat for next week, I promise. But otherwise, this will be a podcast which is just me reading out people's names. So I'm naming 10 at a time. And this week's 10 are Tom Fowler, Simon Farrant, Rick Furness, Joe Trent, Jen Carter, Gary Rogers, JSK, Emma Oakey, DF Hart, and Christine and Kieran. Thank you to you guys so much for being amongst the first swathe of Indie Author Mindset patrons. And what was actually really, really encouraging is that almost half of the patrons have joined on the top Jonin High Ninja tier, which is absolutely fantastic. That gives them on that tier access to this podcast before it's released, that personalised thank you just heard, a free Indie Author Mindset book of their choice, access to an exclusive live monthly Q&A event, priority one-on-one help with their books via the Patreon messaging system, a free Indie Author Mindset course after 6 months, a hefty discount on my private coaching sessions, and a free copy of every Indie Author Mindset book as it's released. All of that for just $10. And the plans do start at as little as $2. So if you want to join, head over to patreon.com/Indie Author Mindset or check out the link in the show notes. Now, I mentioned ninjas a moment ago, so I probably should give you this week's Indie Author Mindset Ninja Tip. Keep a success scrapbook. We all have times of self-doubt. We all experience at some point or another imposter syndrome. It is the creative curse, as it's known. But keep a success scrapbook so that your chin remains high at all times, especially when you're feeling low about things. It can be a physical or a digital scrapbook, but make sure you log all of your successes and achievements in it. Print out your lovely emails that you get from readers. Take screenshots of any good rankings you get with your books. If you win a competition or an award, pop that in there too. If it makes you feel good about your writing, make sure you log it. And when you feel self-doubt creep in again, which it will, open up your scrapbook and give yourself that motivation to pick your feet up and get going again. And I think we're all going to need a little motivation and picking up over the coming weeks and months. Thank you for listening and for all of your continued support. I really do appreciate all of your feedback, good and bad, and I am very keen that this podcast gives you exactly what you need at all times, so please do let me know if there are any topics or subjects you would like me to cover or any questions you'd like me to answer on the show. Just fire me an email at podcast@indieauthormindset.com or catch me in the Indie Author Mindset Facebook group. And of course, don't forget to claim your half-price Indie Author Mindset mini course. Listen on to the end credits to find out how to claim that. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. I'm going to see you back here next week for episode 15. This episode of the Indie Author Mindset podcast was presented by me, Adam Croft. The theme music for this podcast is by the Caesareans. Don't forget you can claim 50% off any Indie Author Mindset course by entering the promo code podcast at the checkout. Links are in the show notes. For more great tips and guidance, join the Indie Author Mindset group on Facebook.